Bernardino, I'm the President and CEO of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. On behalf of our Board of Directors and members, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our annual State of the Region conference. Prior to, as is the custom of the IEEP Board, prior to any major event, we have our all partners meeting. And the meeting that we had earlier today for 2 hours went deep into the issues of the economy of Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Our organization exists to better the business, climate, and quality of life of the Inland Empire. We do that by focusing on jobs, the creation of jobs, the retention of jobs. We focus on creating the next generation of our region's leaders. And we're focused on being a regional advocate. We dove deep into educational success and the need to increase the fact that only 20% of the 4.4 million residents of the Inland Empire have bachelor's degrees. We need to change that number, and we're together, business and our education partners, we're working on that issue. We dove deep into issues outside of our region, political issues that are going to put pressure and continue to put pressure on this region, because people outside of this region don't appreciate our unique status, our needs, and sometimes what we're seeing is policy that can be extremely detrimental. And so we took deep dives into those issues. We talked about success, we talked about the business community supporting various initiatives. And those of you who don't know, the Inland Empire Economic Partnerships members are the larger employers of our region. What you're going to hear today is some very good news. For a long time we've heard bad news, but you're going to continue to hear good news. But I have to say, my friends, that unless we are working together, unless we are working on the forces that can be detrimental to us, unless we are sharing resources and expertise, the modern economy, the worldwide economy, could swallow us up. And yet we have so much going for us. We have our location, we have our size, and we're just hard-working people, right? Hard-working people in our corner of Southern California, trying to make it. And so I'm happy that you're all here today. I talked about leadership and training future leaders, and the IEEP Board created the Regional Leadership Academy. And the Academy consists of our business members who send individuals into the Academy, and the public sector that send individuals, many of them very top tier in their organizations. Okay, so it's time to turn it over to Dr. Husing. Dr. Husing is the Chief Economist of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. At our board meeting today, he talked about the fact that he's been studying the economy for 52 years. I'm pleased to let him know that I've only been alive for 48. And so while we appreciate his longevity, the board of IEEP, the members of IEEP, appreciate that he is the unique voice of the Inland Empire, that he's not afraid to tell us how it is. And the only way that we can deal with issues that impact us negatively is to own up to them. Not to hide, not to run, not to create an alternative reality, but to say this is who we are, and then to tackle those issues and those situations. And it is that unique voice that I think is so key to moving our region forward. So with that, please welcome Dr. John Husing. All right, we have, first of all, a poll. How many of you think that 2016 will not be as good as 2015? Please raise your hands. None of you? Wow. How about the same? They'll be the same. Quite a few of you. Better. All right, that's the forecast. Thank you very much. Okay. So what we're going to do today is take a look at where the Inland Empire sits, what its competitive advantages are and are not, how the various sectors that drive the economy are doing,
And then I have guests who will coming and talking about specific pieces of that puzzle. To start out, I always start out with the national economy, because honestly, that is the ocean of forces within which we swim. So you see up here on the screen those negative bars. That was month by month, the job loss from the Great Recession. Altogether, the U.S. lost 8.71 million jobs in that period of time. Only thing that in the 20th century that was worse was the Great Depression. Then you see three really tall bars. Job growth. Well, those were the hiring of census workers, which then the four negative bars we laid off. So we don't get excited about that. But from there on, you see a lot of positive bars. There's been a lot of complaint out of the political sector that this job growth has been too slow. Well, altogether, what has it added up to? We've added back 13.8 million jobs, so we are 5.1 million above where we've ever been before in the U.S. economy, which is 3.7% higher than we were back in '07 before the Great Dive. One of the good things about slow growth is we haven't seen something stupid happen in the U.S. economy. Now, we get stupid every once in a while. We had the dot-com explosion, which led to a recession. We had the mortgage thing lead to a recession. Right now, it's tough to see the next recession, which for those of us who do forecasting is really cool, because we don't have to worry about it right now. So the economy is looking nationally overall very well. Then within it, there are some specific things that affect the Inland Empire in particular. The first one is the fall in petroleum prices. Ours is not a wealthy region. Our median income is, at best, fairly good, but not all that good. We have a large number of families that spend 100% of their income. When the price of something as fundamental as oil goes down, that affects those people who are at the limit spending all their income by increasing their standard of living. So that is a really good thing for our particular region. Second is my favorite chart. This, on a scale of 100, if you think of that as a ruler, is the value of the dollar against a basket of world currencies. You can see over on the left of these charts, in 2000, it was almost exactly at 100, went above it, and then dove. If we go back to about 2 years ago, it was down at this level. Now it is up at that level. Now the question is, so what? Well, the so what first is, it's now the dollar is 28% more powerful than it was back 2 years ago. Now, how does that add up to anything in our economy? Well, for those of you who know me well, you know that I drink a very large amount of very expensive wine. So here's a bottle of my favorite wine called Montrachet. 2 years ago, you could buy that bottle for $4,000. So I went to my wife, Deborah, and said 2 years ago, I want to buy a bottle of Montrachet. And she said to me, well, you know, you've got 3 ex-wives, you're about to get a 4th. So I couldn't get it then. Well, with the dollar having gone up 28%, the cost of that bottle is now only $28.78. Of course, she still said no, but that's beside the point. Now, what's that got to do with our economy? What do we do here? A huge piece of our economy is handling imported goods that come in through the ports of LA and Long Beach. 40% of all the goods entering the U.S. come in through those 2 ports, a significant share of which is handled out here. So when the dollar becomes strong, it encourages imports from the rest of the world into the U.S. and therefore becomes a fundamental driver to our economy here. Now, if you're a manufacturer, you hate this chart. Why? Because everything you sell to the rest of the world became 28% more expensive to them. Not only that, the imports will tend to be more competition for you within the U.S. market. So it affects different sectors in different ways. It happens to help this region because goods movement is such a major part of it. Then there is consumer confidence. That is, how do we feel about the economy? And again, it's measured on a scale of 100. If you look way back in the early part of 2009, on a scale of 100, we were way down at 21 something. But we were really depressed. Then you see it start to work its way up. But you'll notice it goes up and falls off, goes up and falls off, goes up and falls off. The trend is up, but it keeps falling off. Why did it fall off? Every single month where it fell off was the month that Congress went back in session. That is not a joke. That is, in fact, statistically precise. Why? Because they kept doing something really, really stupid. And you'll notice even now that it's over 100, it's still going up and falling off. That is just what we see going on. But confidence is important because we need confidence if we're going to see our residential real estate markets recover, because the shock of the Great Recession affected that particular sector more than anything. Then there is the stock market. We keep looking for reasons why the economy is going to die. The reason of about 2 months ago was, oh, the stock market is going to hell in a handbasket. Well, the stock market has predicted 9 of the last 5 recessions. Do your math. What you end up with is, it is a terrible mechanism for forecasting anything other than what the recent trend of the lemmings running off a cliff is in the stock market. And of course now the market's back at the S&P 500 is back over 2,000, and we're not talking about that as much anymore. Finally, the other thing that is helping the Inland Empire economy are interest rates. You could see there in the red line is the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. It is barely over 3.5%. It is just slightly over the lowest it's been in recent history, which should be an encouraging sign for home buying. And we'll hear from Steve Ruffner a lot more about if that's helping or not helping. So when you look at the national economy, what you're seeing is pretty darn good news for the ocean of forces, again, that we swim in. Now, going down to California. California in 2007 had 15.8 million jobs. But then you see the Great Recession, and we lost 1.1 million of those jobs. So we lost a lot of jobs in the state. Subsequently, we have added back 1.8 million. So we've added back about 700,000 more than we lost, and we're at a record in the state of 16.4 million jobs, 630,000 more jobs than the state has ever had. It's up a little better than the national. It's up 4% above where it was before we went in. So again, a good environment for our particular region, which gets it down to what I think most of you are most interested in, is what's going on in the Inland Empire. Here is the trends in the Inland Empire. What do we see? Well, if you go back from 84 all the way through 07, we had job growth in every single year. Now, if you go back to when dinosaurs were roaming on the campus of San Bernardino Valley College when I started, which would be way over there someplace, what do you see? It was always blue. We never had a time when we lost jobs in the Inland Empire, including the deep recession in Southern California with the end of the Cold War and the cutbacks in defense and aerospace. Even during that period, we added a little over 20,000 jobs. So our area until 2008 always added. Then we had these 3 years when we lost 140,650 jobs. Not quite 11% of all our jobs disappeared in 3 years. We obviously, well, any of those of you who were coming to this, I would walk in and everybody would immediately boo. Why? Because I had no good news of any kind to report, except in healthcare. Now you see after that a group of blue bars going up through 2014. 2014 we added 55,958 jobs, really strong year. What about last year? 58,692. third highest growth in the Inland Empire ever. The only 2 years were the two of the crazy years with the mortgage thing going on, when construction was absolutely going out of its mind. So very strong. Where did it leave us? We have added back 196,896 jobs during the period of recovery and now expansion. As we sit here now, we are 56,000 jobs higher than we've ever been in the history of the Inland Empire. Very good news, but it gets better. Well, this is not the chart of better. Sorry, I forgot what I had coming up. We have some strengths and we have some weaknesses in our economy. Let me start with the weaknesses. On the left, you see the state of California. Jobs paying more than $55,000 as a median, 17.8% of the state's jobs were in the sectors with a median of 55 plus. In the Inland Empire, only 2.1. Therein lies our biggest issue, is so far the inability to get this economy to add high-end jobs into the mix. Then we look at office moderate-paying jobs. This is everything from real estate, insurance, finance, going into information tech, going also, by the way, K through 12 education. Statewide, 13.1. Our region, 16.3. Partially it's higher because of the big, huge share in the high-end sectors at the state level. But then you get to the dramatic difference between the Inland Empire and the state of California. In the Inland Empire, 39.4% of our jobs were blue-collar technical. This is everything from the kind of thing that Brett Gooch does at California Steel, the sort of thing that goes on with the trucking industry, the things that go on in construction, particularly most recently in construction of infrastructure and large facilities. So notice the state was only 20.7%. California's policies so discriminate against manufacturing, logistics, and construction that we basically suppress those sectors statewide. It hasn't happened here because of our competitive advantages for those sectors. But the result I find rather stunning. And that is in what share of the job growth here was in sectors paying $30,000 and below. For this area, 42.2. Now that sounds like a big number. Actually, 50-50 isn't a bad mix because so much of our economy tends to be in the service sectors where we're doing retailing, consumer services, etc. But look at the state, 48.3. So yes, the state has been adding jobs, but almost half of them are low-paying jobs because the state has hollowed out its blue-collar sectors, which is a policy issue that the kind of thing that we deal with the Inland Empire Economic Partnership is talking about, excuse me, but this is not helpful, particularly in areas with large numbers of marginally educated folks. Now, the other piece of good news. Last year, the fastest growing total job growth in the state, not surprisingly, LA County, 84,958. Second fastest, Inland Empire, 58,692. Who's that above? San Francisco. With all due respect, the Bay Area is not the center of the universe. We are in Southern California. Then there's Orange County at 46,950, and then Silicon Valley. So the folks up there think they run the world. They do not do it in job growth. We do down here. And most specifically, this is the third year in a row for that result. So we have become the state job engine that we used to be prior to the Great Recession. We're back in that world again. Now, unemployment, what's going on there? Well, if you look on this chart, you see a blue bar there in the center. That was when our unemployment rate was 14.4, where the U.S. unemployment rate was in the high 9s. We were way above it. You could see at the early part of the 2000s, we were right even with unemployment. But if you go way over on the right, And these are both unadjusted, that is, we take seasonality out because they don't seasonally adjust our local data. Our unemployment rate, 5.8. The national unadjusted, 5.2. We are back to being almost the same as the U.S. So our unemployment rate is way down from where it was, 14.4 to 5.8. Does that mean it's completely solved? No. There are still people that are working part-time that would like to be full-time and other things. But the fact is the overall number is beginning to look very much like the national number again. Now, competitive conditions. Why is it we do better in some sectors than the state? Why is it we're growing so fast? What drives that? First and foremost, we have a problem here. 25.4% of the children in the Inland Empire, so 1 out of 4, is living below the poverty line. So stop and think of the significance of that. You live in a poor household, you've got to fight through that before you ever get to school, and it's unlikely in your household you've got people who really understand technology or understand what's going to happen if you try and go on to college. So that number is disastrous. If we look overall, we're at 18.2. Both cases were better off than LA, slightly, a lot better off than the Central Valley. And you may ask yourself, why is it that the interior of California has those kinds of numbers? One of the reasons, not the only reasons, but one of those reasons is the California Environmental Quality Act. Because what has happened to almost any project to build housing in the coastal counties of California is it's immediately sued and held up for years. I like to call it the let's hold them up until they run out of money act. Got nothing to do with environment, has a lot to do with trying to stop projects from going forward. That is the reason why you see prices going out of sight in the coastal counties. So if you're a marginally educated person without a high income and you're going to rent or buy, you're going to be forced to migrate inland, which leads to the kind of numbers you see in both the Central Valley as well as the Inland Empire. This is a state policy issue that the state legislature has refused to date to do anything about because it's got nothing to do with filing suits on the basis of environment so much as stopping projects. Now, then our other major issue, which really is related to why we have such a small share of high-end jobs created in the region, high-end sectors, is the adult educational attainment rate. So much of what we are doing at the Inland Empire Economic Partnership aims at this issue because unless we fix it, we'll never be completely prosperous. You can see that in Riverside County, 45.7% of the adult population, high school or less. San Bernardino, 47.1. The only area worse off is the Central Valley, 51.9. Again, you can see the migration pattern pushing folks inland to where they can afford to live, given a lot of the things the state has done in terms of policy. But the result of this is it tends to structure what kinds of companies can afford to locate here. This is a major issue for us. Now, where are we at the other end of the picture? 20.7% in Riverside County and 18.9% in San Bernardino County have a bachelor's degree or higher. The shares in the coastal counties range from a low of 30 in LA to a high of 36 or 37 in Orange County. So you really don't have the ability to compete on a basis